How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, July 21st, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do a GOATed profile for Clayton Kershaw. Initially, I did an episode on March 19th, but in trying to upload the new videos, I actually lost it. So now that he's actually started for the National League in this most recent All-Star game, there probably isn't a more appropriate time to do his GOATed profile as I upload his video today, or probably tomorrow most likely, but just to give you a good sense of why he's one of the GOATed profiles in 2022. He is, of course, a pitcher that has separated himself from even the best of the best pitchers in the MLB. To be a pitcher to win an MVP, to do so in 30 or so games when people are playing 162 games is an incredible feat in itself. He has cemented himself in Dodger history, not to mention MLB history. It's very possible that he might have already cemented a Hall of Fame career. Not to mention he did get a chance to pitch the entire first inning in the All-Star game where he was able to, of course, hold the lead while he was in. But that is currently where we are sitting right now, as he is a 9-time All-Star, not to mention he is a World Series champion, not to mention he is a Triple Crown pitcher as well. And he's a pitcher that's pitched a no-hitter. But, of course, I digress. Going back to the beginning, he, of course, got a start in Dallas, Texas. He would go on to be selected with the 7th overall pick in the 2006 MLB draft after he was considered the top consensus high school pitcher available. Of course, he would forego a chance to pitch at Texas A&M. He would go on and, of course, sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He would go on to make his debut for the Los Angeles Dodgers in his age 20 season in 2008. In that season, he would go on to start 21 of the 22 games he played. In a season in which the Dodgers went 84-78, they would make the playoffs after winning the NL West, after not making the playoffs the year before. In that season, Clayton Kershaw would finish with a 5-5 record as a starter. He had a 4.26 ERA, which is the only season in his career that his ERA was above 4 from beginning to end. He would pitch 107 innings. He would allow 109 hits, which is 2 more hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 100 batters, which is 7 less strikeouts than innings pitched. However, he would be a big part of the Dodgers making the playoffs that year. Once they made the playoffs in 2008, they would end up sweeping the Cubs in the first round. They would end up losing in the next round to the Philadelphia Phillies, who ended up winning the World Series that year. But of course, this would transition into Clayton Kershaw's second season with the Dodgers. His second season in LA would be his age 21 season in 2009. He would start 30 of the 31 games he played in a season in which the Dodgers would go 95-67. They would win 11 more games than the prior year. In that regular season, Clayton Kershaw would go 8-8. He would put up a 2.79 ERA. First time in a full season that he pitched, his ERA was below 3. An ERA below 3 means that he allowed 1 earned run for every 3 innings pitched. ERA is per 9 innings, and of course they measure it out over a year. He would go on and finish a game on the year. In the 171 innings he pitched, he would allow 119 hits. That, of course, would be 52 less hits than innings pitched. His 185 strikeouts would be 14 more strikeouts than innings pitched. He would lead the National League in his very first statistical category that year. It would be hits allowed per 9 innings. He allowed 6.3 hits per 9, as he had the best ratio in the National League at 21 years old. He would not be named an All-Star in 2009. However, he, of course, would see the Dodgers make it to the playoffs. They would end up sweeping the Cardinals in the National League Division Series. They would end up losing in the championship series to a Philadelphia Phillies team that would make it to the World Series as they lost to the Yankees. That would transition into Kershaw's third year in Los Angeles. In his age 22 season in 2010, he would start all 32 of the games he played in. He would pick up a double-digit amount of wins for the very first time in a season in which the Dodgers went 80-82. This will be their first losing record since 2005, and since then, they actually have not posted a losing record since 2010. In that season, Clayton Kershaw put up a 13-10 record. His 2.91 ERA would be the second year in a row that his ERA was below 3, as he would miss the All-Star game yet again. This time, he would go on and pitch his very first complete game in a season, as he pitched a shutout, his very first of his career. In his third season, he would go on and pitch 200 innings for the very first time. He would pitch 204 innings. His 160 hits would be 44 less hits than innings pitched. His 212 strikeouts would both be the first time he would eclipse 200 strikeouts. It would be the second year in a row he had more strikeouts than hits. And he would go on, of course, to finish with 52 more strikeouts than hits on the year. He would go on to allow less hits than 9. He would allow 7 hits per 9 inning. Not to mention that this would be, of course, just a good year for him, even though he missed the All-Star game in the playoffs. He would become an All-Star for the very first time in his 4th year in Los Angeles. In his age 23 season in 2011, Clayton Kershaw would start all 33 of the matchups he played in a season in which the Dodgers would go 82-79. He would go on to see the Dodgers win 2 more games in the prior season. They would completely miss the playoffs for the second year in a row, as they barely stayed above 500. Clayton Kershaw, as a pitcher, would go on to win the Triple Crown, which as a pitcher means that he finished with the most wins. He had 21 of them. He would go on to finish with the best ERA out of all pitchers in the National League at 2.28, and he would finish with the most strikeouts in the National League at 248, which would be the first time he would hit that amount, so that would be a career high for him. Like I said, he would finish with a 21-5 record, even though the Dodgers barely were over 500, and he would go on to finish with 5 complete games pitched the first time he would eclipse 5 of those. He would throw 2 shutouts. He would go on to pitch 233 innings, as this would be the second year in a row he pitched over 200 innings. His 174 hits allowed would be 59 less hits than innings pitched. This would be the third year in a row he had significantly less hits than innings pitched. His 248 strikeouts would be 15 more strikeouts than innings pitched in his second year in a row with at least 200 strikeouts. He would lead the National League in WHIP, which is walk/hits per innings pitched, as that it was below 1 for the first time in his career. He would allow 6.7 hits per 9 innings. This would be the second time in a 3-year span he would lead the National League in that statistical category. In addition to being named an All-Star and winning the Triple Crown in the National League, he was given the Gold Glove Award and would be given the Cy Young Award in the 2011 season for what he had done that year. Once that season would come to an end, his first Cy Young season, the Dodgers, like I said, would miss the playoffs, and that would transition into Clayton Kershaw's 5th season in LA. In his age 24 season in 2012, literally 10 years ago, he would go on to start all 33 of the games he played, a National League high, in a season in which the Los Angeles Dodgers went 86-76. They won 4 more games in the prior year, but would miss the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row. In that 2012 season, Clayton Kershaw would finish with a 14-9 record. That would be the 3rd year in a row he had a double-digit amount of wins and a winning record at that. He would go on to finish with a 2.59 ERA, making it the 4th consecutive season in his first 5 years that he would have an ERA below 3. He would go on to pitch 2 complete games, as both of them were shutouts. The second year in a row, he had 2 shutouts in a year. He would pitch 227 innings. The third year in a row, he would pitch over 200 innings, which if you follow MLB, it's pretty tough for a pitcher to go over 200 innings. In those 227 innings, he allowed 170 hits. That is 57 less hits than innings pitched on the year. His 229 strikeouts would be 2 more strikeouts than innings pitched. It will be the 3rd year in a row he had more than 200 strikeouts, and the 4th year in a row he had more strikeouts than innings pitched. By the end of that year, of course, he was named an All-Star for the second year in a row in his fifth season in Los Angeles. He would finish 16th in MVP voting, as he would finish runner-up in the Cy Young Award, almost winning it back-to-back. That year, the Cy Young would go to R.A. Dickey of the New York Mets. However, following that 2012 season, the Dodgers would miss the playoffs for the last time, at least to date, as the Dodgers have made the playoffs the last 9 years. After 2012, they would win the National League West for 8 straight seasons, led by Clayton Kershaw. That, of course, would be started with Clayton Kershaw's second Cy Young season, which came in 2013. In his sixth season with the Dodgers and his age 25 season in 2013, he would go on to start all 33 of the games he played for the third year in a row, in a season in which the Dodgers would end up going 92-70. They would win 6 more games in the prior year, as they would win the National League West for the first time since 2009. In 2013, Clayton Kershaw would finish with a 16-9 record, making it the third year in a row he had a winning record with a single-digit amount of losses. His fourth year in a row with a winning record. This will be his third straight All-Star season, as he finished with a 1.83 ERA. This will be his fifth season in a row, making it a half-decade straight that he had an ERA below 3. This would be the second time in his first 6 years, his second time in a 3-year stretch that his ERA was below 2.5. First time it was below 2, so I mean, that's crazy. He would throw 3 complete games as he had 2 shutouts. This would be the first time he led the National League in shutouts. So in addition to ERA, he was able to lead them in shutouts and in strikeouts. In the 236 innings he pitched, he would finish with 232 strikeouts. That's 4 less strikeouts than innings pitched, but that would be the fourth year in a row he's had at least 200 strikeouts. It would be the second time in a 3-year stretch that he would lead the National League in strikeouts. And not to mention, his 236 innings would be the most innings that Clayton Kershaw would pitch in a season. It will be the 4th year in a row that he pitched over 200 innings. He would lead the National League in ERA plus, as his ERA at 1.83 was 94 points better than the average pitcher in the National League. It will be the second year in a row he led the National League in that stat. It will be the third year in a row he led the National League in walk/hits per innings pitch at .915. That would be the lowest it had been in his career. The second time in a 3-year span. In his first 6 years, that his whip would be below 1. And not to mention that his hits per 9 innings would be at 6.3, tied for his career low at that point. In addition to being named an All-Star for the third year in a row, he would, in being named a Cy Young winner, he would finish 7th in an MVP voting race. That was the Andrew McCutchen of the Pittsburgh Pirates win the award. Once that season came to an end and the Dodgers would make their start of their playoff run. In 2013, they would beat the Braves 3-1 in the National League Division Series. They would end up losing in the NLCS to the St. Louis Cardinals. That year, the Cardinals would end up losing in the World Series to John Farrell's Boston Red Sox. And after the Red Sox were able to win the World Series in 2013 in Clayton Kershaw's second Cy Young season, this would lead into what might be Clayton Kershaw's most memorable season. In his age 26 season in 2014, he would go on to start all 27 of the games he played for a Dodgers team that would end up going 94-68. The team would win 2 more games in the prior year. Clayton Kershaw would go on to be named an All-Star for the 4th year in a row, and the first time he was named an All-Star was his first Cy Young season. In 2014, he would go on to be named the Cy Young winner in the National League for the 3rd time in a 4-year stretch. Not to mention, he would go on to be named the MVP of the National League after making 27 appearances, which at that point was the least amount of starts he had made since his rookie season in 2008. In those 27 starts, he would go on to finish with a 21-3 record, making it the second time in his first 7 years there that he would put up 20 wins. He has not put up 20 wins in a season since that 2014 year. He would put up a 177 ERA, which would be the second year in a row his ERA was below 2, the fourth year in a row that he was below 3, which is incredibly impressive. He would lead the National League with 6 complete games. This would be the first time he led the National League in it. That's the most complete games he's ever thrown in a season as well. He would go on to pitch 198 innings. It would be the first year since 2009 that he hadn't pitched 200 innings and ending his 4-year stretch. In those 198 innings, he allowed 139 hits. That 139 hits is, of course, 59 less hits than innings pitched. He would finish with 239 strikeouts, which is 41 more strikeouts than innings pitched, making it the 5th year in a row he had more strikeouts than innings. He would go on to lead the National League in ERA plus for the 3rd year in a row, as his ERA was 97 points higher than the average pitcher. His FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, would be the highest in the NL. His walk/hits per innings pitched would lead the National League for the 4th year in a row at .857. That is the last time to date that he has led the National League in this statistical category. He would lead the National League in strikeouts per 9 as he averaged 10.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. This would be the first time he led the National League in this statistical category. He also led the league in strikeouts per win as he had 7.71 strikeouts per win. By the end of this year, of course, like I said, he would be named the MVP. That's the lone MVP that he's had in his career. Since this, he has not won a Cy Young in the National League. And of course, he's had a good amount of seasons since 2014. As right now, we are in his 8th season since he's won his last Cy Young. But of course, following 2014, and he was after being named an All-Star for the 4th year in a row, the Dodgers would end up losing in the very first round in the National League Division Series to the St. Louis Cardinals. This year, the team that came out of the National League was the San Francisco Giants, the Dodgers' all-time rival, as of course the Giants, led by Bruce Bochy, would beat the Kansas City Royals in 7 games. Following this would lead into what would be Clayton Kershaw's 8th season with the LA Dodgers. In his age 27 season in 2015, he would start all 33 of the games he played for a Dodgers team that went 92-70. They won 2 less games than the prior year, but they would win the National League West for the 3rd year in a row. In 2015, Clayton Kershaw would be named an All-Star in the National League for the 5th year in a row to start off the 2010, or I guess just to have a half decade straight and do that is such an incredible feat. He would go on and finish with a 16-7 record. That would, of course, be the 6th year in a row that he had a winning record, the 5th year in a row that he's had a single-digit amount of losses. His 2.13 ERA would be the 7th year in a row his ERA was below 3. It would be the 4th time in a 5-year stretch that his ERA was below 2.50. His 4 complete games would lead the National League for the 2nd year in a row. He has not led the National League in complete games thrown since 2015. His 3 shutouts would lead the National League for the 2nd time in a 3-year stretch, as his 3 shutouts would be tied for a career high for him. He would go on and pitch a league-high 232.2 innings. This would be the 5th time in a 6-year stretch that he's pitched over 200 innings. This is the lone time in his career that he would lead the National League in innings pitched. And to date, 2015 is the last season that he's thrown over 200 innings. In those 232 innings pitched, he would allow 163 hits. That would be 69 less hits than innings pitched on the year. His 301 strikeouts would be the very lone season in his career that he would throw over 300 strikeouts in a season. And of course, there would be 69 more strikeouts than innings pitched. He will go on to lead the National League in fielding independent pitching yet again. Not to mention that his ERA of 2.13 was 73 points higher than the average pitcher. And not to mention his 11.6 strikeouts per 9 would be the 2nd year in a row that he would lead the National League in strikeouts per 9 innings. And to date, he has not led the National League in that category since. In addition to being named an All-Star, he would go on and finish 10th in MVP voting in a season where Bryce Harper would win it for the Washington Nationals. This year, he would go on and finish third in Cy Young voting as the Cy Young went eventually to Jake Arrieta of the Chicago Cubs. This would be the 5th year in a row. And in his first 5 All-Star seasons, he would finish top 3 in Cy Young voting in the National League, which is, of course, an incredible feat upon itself, which is showing why he is more than an elite profile. But of course, he has built a legacy since then. Since that 2015 season, I guess once it came to an end, they would end up losing in the divisional round to the Mets. That year, the Mets would make it to the World Series, and they would lose to the Kansas City Royals, who lost the year before. The Royals won it in 5 games. Following that 2015 season, that would lead into Kershaw's 9th season with the LA Dodgers. In his age 28 season in 2016, Clayton Kershaw would start all 21 of the games he played in a season, of course, that he had to deal with a little bit of injury, but in a season in which the Dodgers would end up going 91-71. They won 1 less game than the prior year, as they had won the National League West for what was now the 4th year in a row. This is the year where Dave Roberts won his first his lone manager of the year. This is the year where Corey Seager was able to win the Rookie of the Year. In 2016, in his shortened season, the first time he pitched under 25 games since his rookie year, he would go on and finish with a 12-4 record. He would go on and be named an All-Star for the 6th year in a row. His 12-4 record would, of course, be the 7th year in a row that he had a winning record, the 6th year in a row that he had a single-digit amount of losses. His 1.69 ERA would be the 3rd time in a 4-year stretch that his ERA was below 2. It would be the 5th time in a 6-year stretch that his ERA was below 2.50 in a season. Not to mention, his 2.37 ERA plus would be the highest of his career, meaning it was 137 points better than the average pitcher in the National League. He would go on and finish with 3 complete games and 3 shutouts. This would be the 3rd time in a 4-year stretch he led the National League in shutouts, even though he pitched 21 games, 12 less than his prior season, in the 149 innings he pitched, which, of course, at that point were more than 70, I'm looking at this completely wrong, more than 80 innings less than the year prior. He would go on and allowed 97 hits. His 97 hits would be 52 less hits than innings pitched that year. His 172 strikeouts would be 23 more strikeouts than innings pitched, as this would be the 3rd year in a row that he had more strikeouts than innings pitched. It would be the 7th year out of 8. In that span, he would go on to be 5th in Cy Young voting. This would be the lowest he would be on this. This would be the lowest that he would be voted in the Cy Young race since he had won it for the first time in 2011. That year, the Cy Young eventually ended up going to Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals. But however, he was able to help the Dodgers make it into the playoffs that year. In Corey Seager's Rookie of the Year season, the Dodgers would end up beating the Nationals 3-2 in the divisional round. They would end up meeting the Cubs. They would lose in 6 games to the Chicago Cubs. That would end an over 100-year World Series drought. The Chicago Cubs would beat the Cleveland Indians in 7 games in the World Series in 2016. That, of course, would transition into Clayton Kershaw's 10th season, and to finish off his first decade with the Dodgers in his age 29 season, he would start all 27 of the games he played in a season in which the LA Dodgers went 104-58. This would be the 5th year in a row they won the National League West. This is the year also that Cody Bellinger won the Rookie of the Year. This would be the first time since 1974 that they had won at least 100 games, and the first time since they've won 104 games as the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it was a historic regular season. Clayton Kershaw would be named an All-Star for the 7th year in a row to finish out his very first decade as a professional baseball player. He would go on and finish with an 18-4 record. This would be the third year in what would be a 7-year stretch that he would lead the National League in wins. As of course, it would start when he won his first Cy Young, and it would end in 2017. His 18-4 record would be coupled with his 2.31 ERA. His 2.31 ERA would, of course, be his 9th year in a row with an ERA below 3, which is an incredible feat, as many times as I like to say it. It'll be the 5th year in a row and the 6th time in a 7-year stretch that his ERA was below 2.50. And, of course, even going back to the 18 wins, this is the last time that he's ever led the National League in wins and in ERA. He would go on to pitch a complete game. The last complete game that he pitched was in 2017. In the 175 innings he pitched, he would go on to allow 136 hits. That is 39 less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 202 batters in those 175 innings. That is 27 more strikeouts than innings. His 202 strikeouts would be the last time he would throw over 202 strikeouts in a season, or at least throw over 200, His 179 ERA plus would be the fourth time in a 6-year stretch that he would lead the National League in that stat. Not to mention that he would lead the National League in strikeouts per win for the last time, at least to date. In addition to being named an All-Star for the 7th year in a row, this year he would go on and finish runner-up in the Cy Young race in a year in which Max Scherzer would win it for the Washington Nationals. This is the last year to date that Clayton Kershaw has been in the top 5, or let alone the top 3, top 2 of the Cy Young race. Following this 2017 regular season, the Dodgers would end up sweeping the Diamondbacks in the division round. They would end up beating the Cubs, the team that beat them the year before. They beat them in 5 games in order to make it to the World Series. They would end up losing the World Series to the Houston Astros that season. It eventually came out that the Astros were cheating, but they still got immunity and were able to keep their title. And in his very first World Series, he would end up pitching 1 game. He made 3 appearances and pitched 2 starts. He did pick up a win. And in the 15 innings he pitched, he allowed 9 hits. He did allow 7 earned runs. He did allow a couple of home runs, as he had a 4.02 ERA. As that season, the Houston Astros would be victorious. That, of course, would transition into Clayton Kershaw's second decade with the LA Dodgers. That would start with his 2018 season, his age 30 season. As that season, he would go on to start all 26 of the games he pitched in a season in which the Dodgers would end up going 92-71. They would win 12 less games than the prior year. However, they would win their division for the 6th year in a row. In 2018, Clayton Kershaw would miss the All-Star game for the first time since 2010, as I believe his season was a little bit delayed because of his injuries. I'm not exactly sure. I most definitely could look into it. But of course, he was able to finish with a 9-5 record. That would, of course, be the 9th year in a row he had a double-digit amount. Or he would finish with a winning record in the National League. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. His 2.73 ERA would be the 10th year in a row, making it a decade straight that his ERA was below 3. That would, of course, end that streak, at least that continuous streak. He would finish pitching 161 innings, which is 14 less than the year prior. That's still a pretty full season for most pitchers. He would allow 139 hits in those 161 innings, which is, of course, 22 less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 155 batters, which is 6 less batters than innings pitched, which would, of course, end a 4-year stretch of having more strikeouts than innings pitched. Once that 2018 season came to an end, the Dodgers would find themselves right back in the World Series. After beating the Braves in the NLDS 3-1, they would beat the Brewers 4-3 in the National League Championship Series. They would end up losing in 5 games to the Boston Red Sox. Once they made it into the playoffs, Clayton Kershaw would finish with an 0-2 record in the World Series this year. In the 11 innings he pitched, he would allow 14 hits as he had a 7.36 ERA. he did give up 3 home runs in the series. But however, he was a big part of the reason that the Dodgers were there in the first place, and of course that isn't forgotten. That would of course transition into Clayton Kershaw's 12th season with the LA Dodgers. In his age 31 season in 2019, he will go on and start 28 of the 29 games he played in a season in which the Dodgers went 106-96. In their history, I do not think that they have won 106 games in a season. So that was a very historic regular season in itself, as this was the season where Cody Bellinger won the MVP. In that regular season, Clayton Kershaw would go on and finish with a 16-5 record. This would, of course, be yet another season in which you would have a double-digit amount of wins. This would be the ninth season in a 10-year stretch. This would be a 10-year stretch in which he would go on and have a winning record in this league. This would be the 9th time in a 10-year stretch that he had a winning record with a single-digit amount of losses, is what I was going to say. And also within that year, he would go on and finish with a 3.03 ERA. That'll be the first time since his rookie year that his ERA would be above 3, which is still incredibly amazing. His 178 innings would yield 145 hits, which is 33 less hits than innings pitched. He would go on and finish with 189 strikeouts on the year. That would be 11 more strikeouts than innings pitched. After being named an All-Star for the 8th time in a 9-year stretch, he would go on and finish 8th in a Cy Young Award voting race. That would see Jacob deGrom win it for the New York Mets. However, once that 2019 season was over, the LA Dodgers would end up losing in the very first round to the eventual World Series champs, Washington Nationals. Of course, making it 4 straight years that they had lost to the team that they had won, that had won the World Series. Following that 2019 season, it would transition into the season that would pretty much change Clayton Kershaw's legacy after that point. His age 32 season in 2020 would see the MLB shorten its season from 162 games to 60 because, of course, naturally, because of COVID, they wanted to restrict traveling and they wanted to keep it to MLB divisions and just like geographic area codes, just because that was what made sense at the time. In 2020, in his age 32 season, Clayton Kershaw would go on to start all 10 of the games he played in a season in which the Dodgers went 43-17. They had the best regular season in the MLB, as of course that was when I started recording the show. In this season, Clayton Kershaw would finish with a 6-2 record. He had a 2.16 ERA in the 58 innings he pitched, as his ERA plus was 2.02. This would be the second time in his MLB career that his ERA plus was at least 100 points better than the average. The last time it was over 200 was in 2016, which was Clayton Kershaw's 6th All-Star season. They couldn't name All-Stars in 2020, but ideally they would have named Kershaw one. In the 58 innings he pitched, he allowed 41 hits. That would, of course, be 17 less hits than innings pitched. His 62 strikeouts are 4 more strikeouts than innings pitched. Once the season came to an end, he finished 9th in Cy Young voting. And, of course, the Cy Young winner in 2020, the shortened season in the National League, was Trevor Bauer of the Cincinnati Reds. Following that 2020 regular season, the Dodgers would end up sweeping the Brewers in the National League Wild Card round, as of course the bracket was extended. They would end up beating their division rivals for the year, the Padres, 3-0 in the divisional round. They would end up beating the Atlanta Braves in the National League Championship Series in 7 games. They would go on and face off against the Rays, who had the best record in the American League in 2020. The Dodgers would end up beating the Rays in 6 games in order to win the World Series for the first time since 1988, to win their first World Series of the 21st century. In that playoff series, which would be the last time that Clayton Kershaw has pitched in the playoffs for the Dodgers, he would go on and make 2 appearances as he won both the games he pitched. He finished with a 2.31 ERA, as in the 11.2 innings he pitched, he allowed 7 hits. He allowed 3 earned runs. He would strike out 14 batters in those 11 innings, as of course he would do a lot to earn his very first championship ring. The end of the year would of course see Corey Seager win the World Series MVP. And following that 2020 season, this would lead into what would of course be Clayton Kershaw's 14th season with the LA Dodgers. In his age 33 season in 2021, he would start all 22 of the games he played in a season in which the Dodgers went 106-56. And of course, since 2019 was the last time they went 106 wins as a team, so that should give you an idea of how potent they were. That regular season would see Clayton Kershaw, of course, miss the All-Star season for a full season for the first time since 2018. He would finish with a 10-8 record, as he was still able to put up a winning record for the 11th year in a row, as starting pitchers don't normally do that. His 3.55 ERA would be the highest ERA that he would put together in a season since his rookie year. His 121 innings would be the least amount of innings that he would pitch in a full year since, of course, his rookie season in 2008, as, of course, he was reeling from injury as well. In that 121 innings, he would allow 103 hits. His 103 hits are 18 less hits than innings pitched. He would go on and finish with 144 strikeouts on the year, which is 23 more strikeouts than innings pitched. Once that 2021 season came to an end, he would be a part of a very strong Dodgers team that finished with the second best record in the National League West to the Giants. They would end up winning in the wild card round to the St. Louis Cardinals. They would end up beating the Giants in the divisional round before losing in the championship series to the eventual World Series winners, Atlanta Braves. So, of course, since 2016, including 2020, in which they won, the World Series winners have had to go through the Dodgers. But, of course, that leads us to where we are now, as Clayton Kershaw is in the midst of his 15th season in the league. As, of course, this season he was the starter as the All-Star game was in LA, as right now he is in the midst of his 9th All-Star season. So far, he started 12 games for a Los Angeles Dodgers team that has the best record in the National League as things are standing. Right now, he is holding a 7-2 record, holding a 2.13 ERA, which is 94 points better than the average pitcher. In the 71 innings he's pitched so far, he's allowed 53 hits, which is 18 less hits than innings pitched. He has gone on and struck out 4 more batters in innings pitched as well. And of course, that should really give you a sense of what he's doing even right now, as he is 34. And hopefully by the time he turns 35, there'll be he continues to do this at this level, because growing up in LA and seeing how consistent he's been, at least at his best, it doesn't surprise me that he's pitching this well in his 30s. With that said, I can't wait to see how long Clayton Kershaw pitches at this level, as of course he's already established himself as a Dodger all-time great. I do want to thank everyone for listening to this piece. I hope all is well. And if you ever get a chance to watch him, he wears number 22 for the Dodgers, even though I would say his very best days are possibly behind him. He still has a lot of incredibly amazing days left ahead of him as well. With that said, thanks for listening. I hope all is well. If you ever get a chance to watch Clayton Kershaw and I do think he possibly may have better days ahead of him with what's going on with this LA Dodgers team. Thanks for listening. I hope all is well. Thanks for listening to my piece, and peace out.